Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are you ready?
Do some things.
Good morning. It is 9:01 on January 9th, 2024, and I call this regular meeting of the Bonner County Board of Commissioners to order. For the record, I am Chairman Luke Omodt, and Commissioners Asia Williams and Commissioner Steve Bradshaw are also present. The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Regular business meetings do not constitute public hearings wherein the public has the right to be heard on every agendized item. However, at the discretion of the chair, everyone may be afforded an opportunity to speak on a particular issue if recognized by the chair. Any unrecognized comments or disruptive behavior will be grounds for removal from the board meeting by the chair and may subject the person being removed to criminal prosecution under the law. Please rise for our invocation with Pastor Dan York.
Father God, I thank you for your enormous blessings. I just celebrated a birthday, and looking back over a little over 8 full decades, you have been good. You have been faithful. You have blessed me, and you've blessed the country. I'm blessed to live in this county. And I pray, Lord, that what we do together in these meetings and what the decisions the commissioners come to will serve to further those blessings. And may your blessing rest upon each one. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the order of agenda as presented.
I second the motion.
There is a motion and a second to adopt the order of agenda as presented. Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
The motion carries. Our next agenda item is the consent agenda, and the expenditures over $5,000 for today's business meeting are a confidential item from the sheriff. It's a licensed management service. It says it's for $0, which I don't have any more information. There is a confidential item from the sheriff for $9,876.12, and there is a third item from the sheriff for a 2024 Chevy Silverado for patrol being purchased on state bid pricing of $50,090. The fourth and final item is from technology, and it is confidential, and it is for $9,876.12. I would now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. I will step down from the chair and move that based on the information before us to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
So I received some questions from members of the community regarding how the minutes are written because it's leaving off issues that actually took place during last week's meeting. And so I did get input that the way our requirement for how minutes are written is vague enough that it doesn't have to be an exact transcription of what actually took place. But on this particular one, the reason I'm also not going to make a decision is only because there's a Blanchard item in there, and I want to make sure there's no questions or concerns regarding that because I've heard comments on that one.
Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Abstain.
Yes?
Yes.
The motion carries. Our next agendized item is with the clerk, and I believe we have Miss Stephanie present today.
Good morning, everyone. So number one is for claims batch fiscal year 24 claims batch number 7 in the amount of $1,621,946.90, and demands in batch 7 in the amount of $508,782.91 for a total of $2,130,729.81.
Okay, I move to approve payment of the FY 24 claims and demands in batch number 7 totaling $2,130,729.81.
I'll second the motion to advance it.
There has been a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
On this particular one, I did submit a request to Jessica this morning, which it's not reasonable to have an answer to on some of the credit card expenditures. So I'll not move forward until I have the answer, because I was asked a question on some commissioner credit card expenditures that exceeded $1,000.
I emailed that to you already.
I thought
You were in the
said-
chat, yeah. But when I got here this morning, I was able to
No,
pull it.
yeah, but your answer said it was on the credit card, but it doesn't say what it was for.
Right, but I sent you a follow-up with the attachments for
Okay.
all of Luke's invoices and receipts.
Would you like to ask me a question about my expenses, Commissioner?
No, I'm telling you of a question that I was asked that I couldn't answer, so
No.
all I'm saying is I sent it, so.
I just figured if you had a question about the money that I'm spending on a county credit card, I'm right here in a public meeting, and I'd be happy to answer those questions.
It's all good. You were in your chat. I just
No worries.
wanted you to
We're
know
good.
that you had it.
Thank you, and thank you for, I know it was short this morning, thank you.
Do you
Hearing
guys
no
want me
further
to?
discussion, roll call vote.
Abstain?
Yes?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Do you want me to go over the big
Yes,
ticket
please.
items on the demands?
I would appreciate that, Miss Stephanie.
So there's $149,950 and in addition $11,500, and those two payments were for the jail's heating system needed to be pretty much replaced this year, and so that's what that is. $91,000 for our medical, and then we had $67,000 and $65,000. Those were both for administration fees for medical. $39,000 for bonfire grant, and $22,000 for dental. Those were most of the big ticket items.
Thank you, Mrs. Stephanie.
Okay, and number 2 is regarding fiscal year 24 EMS batch number 7 in the amount of $21,255.23, and demands in batch 7 in the amount of $10,797.82, totaling $32,053.05.
I move to approve payment of the FY 24 EMS claims and demands in batch number 7 totaling $32,053.05.
And the biggest demand in that batch was $6,400 for fuel.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Yes?
Yes?
Yes.
The motion carries. Our next agendized items are from Commissioner Williams.
All right, first one, action, discussion, decision regarding the business meeting beginning at 9 a.m. for commissioner reports and public comment with a hard stop at 10 a.m. And so if any of you guys looked at the packet regarding that start time, we are asking legal to be present, whether that's in person or on Zoom. And so it's reasonable for the flow of business to move that section to the beginning so that legal can have more time. but also it's so important to allow the public to be able to come in and give their comments, which is supposed to be inclusive of them asking the board to actually put things on the agenda for the next week. And then some people need to go work or maybe even go plow, so they might want to leave. So my request is to move that item to the beginning of the meeting to allow for a better flowing meeting in general.
Was that your motion?
And so,
Oh, pardon me.
so what I put forth in the memo was Chapter 2 Board of County Commissioners meeting states the public comment segment, the purpose for the public comment segment of the Board of County Commissioners business meeting is to enable the citizens with issues or concerns with which they wish to bring to the board's attention and afford an opportunity for consideration on a future agenda for possible board action. Article 1, Declaration of Rights, I talk about political power inherent in the people. All political power is inherent in the people. Government is instituted for their equal protection and benefit. And I point that part out on my memorandum because it's equal. And so in order to be able to do that, we need to be accommodating of look at our Zoom and look at our people. Waiting to the end of a meeting that goes very long isn't reasonable to the public. I also provided the comment because a lot of people talked about freedom of speech with respect to the public meetings. We don't, in my opinion, need to be told to allow the public to speak. That's what we are. It's a public agency. So my motion is that the regular business meeting shall commence at 9 o'clock with public comments commencing post invocation and pledge, followed by the commissioner. I shouldn't have said chat. I should have said reports. There will be a hard stop at 10 a.m. So you do have to say, I heard a motion. Do I have a second?
There is a motion. Actually, I do not, Commissioner, but thank you for attempting to correct me. There is a motion on the floor. There is no second. The motion dies. The next agendized item is Commissioner Williams.
Action, discussion, decision regarding the public allowed to comment on each agendized item. That I go through the same exact kind of issues, but I also want to point out to our board, if the decision is just to allow all these to fail, we're not doing what we're supposed to by allowing the people to make meaningful comment into local government. And so one of the things that people have actually not just benefited from, but the county has, there are educated people on a lot of the topics that we have on these agenda that have input to give before we make a decision. And historically, Bonner County has always allowed the community to give input before we make a decision. And that is important. The people are supposed to be included in the decisions that we are making. And so it is my request that my motion is that the public is restored to exercise their right to meaningful participate in the business of Bonner County prior to a decision being made on each agendized item.
Is that your motion, Commissioner?
Yes.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
No.
Hearing none, the motion dies. The next agendized item is Commissioner Williams.
Okay, so the third one is an action, discussion, decision regarding public comment to be allowed on agendized items listed under any Board of Commissioner, as it is impossible for the public to understand the topic prior to meeting to send in questions in advance of the meeting. This was requested by a member of the public, that it's one thing to not allow on generic agendized items, but the commissioners don't give enough information that allows you to advance ask a question. And so if the board doesn't want to allow the public to speak on every agendized items, if they would consider on commissioner agendized items. So the motion is the public to be restored to exercise their right to meaningful participate in the business of Bonner County prior to a decision being made on each agendized items placed by a commissioner.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
No.
Hearing none, the motion dies. The next agendized item.
Discussion regarding applicable staff to update the organizational chart reflecting which departments and committee liaisons with which commissioners. There was a question that came in as to why it needed to be a motion, because we needed to get it done, and I don't know how to get it done without making a request of the board to actually say, let's update it. It's the cleanest way to do it. It allows for transparency. A lot of people want to know within the county who's answering to who and who are the liaisons. If you look back at the historical meetings, I had requested that as people sit over departments or liaison, that they give liaisoning reports so that you know what's happening. That didn't happen, and so the community wanted the clarification on the organizational chart. So the motion is applicable staff to update the organizational chart to reflect which departments and committees or groups a commissioner liaisons with.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
No.
Hearing none, the motion dies.
All
Next
right.
agendized item.
Action, discussion, decision regarding county commissioners to provide updates during their commissioner reports regarding each department or committee that they are the liaison for. Spirit of the same, transparency. I'm going to point to Title 74 regarding transparent and ethical government. That is what we should be striving for as Bonner County. I'm not certain that we're winning too much right now. However, it's reasonable for you to know what we're liaisoning with, especially when you're talking about we don't want to violate open meeting, and this is where we have that discussion. I don't know what's happening in a department that liaisons with a particular elected official unless we're doing it in this meeting. So the motion is each commissioner will include an update regarding their liaison activities as stated during the commissioner reports and allow for public comment.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion dies. Next agendized item.
Number 6, action, discussion, decision regarding Bonner County Commissioners to send out an RFP for a forensics fair audit with a start date prior to 2023, recommended by an external auditor that has not had a prior relationship with Bonner County Fair for the purposes of auditing. And do I see the person who asked for this online? Is Brandon Kramer online? So so the original request was stated. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm not, the purpose of the way that I wrote it was to not box in a potential auditor to have to do a specific, but to allow them to use their professional recommendation of what the correct starting date is for. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I am not a professional auditor, but in the prejuxtaposition of a forensic audit is to allow that auditor to discern exactly when that should or should not start, because the intent is to find if fraudulent activity occurred and to what extent.
Okay. And so what I wrote was, with the recommendation of an auditing firm and legal, the Board of County Commissioners is to send out an RFP for a forensics audit prior to the 2023 date. The start date of said audit is to be determined by the experts in the field. The start date year of the forensics audit is to be agendized and notified to the public in the regular business meeting. So the suggested motion was that the board send out an RFP for a forensics audit of the fair board with the experts in the field selecting the starting date year. Post-selection of the starting date and the year, the board shall report to the public the start date and year determined by the experts in the field in the regular business meeting.
I will step down from the chair and second the motion for discussion. My question in regards to this motion is, where are the funds budgeted for this forensic audit? It is my understanding that the Office of the Prosecutor spent approximately $40,000 with, I believe it was Swan Investigation Services on a similar one. It's my further understanding that a forensic audit is primarily utilized with the intent of the pursuit of a crime. Bonner County is currently, I believe actually, no, I'm certain, today is the day where we will close out the RFPs for our statutorily obligated audit. The Board of County Commissioners has already expressly stated there will be an independent audit of the fairgrounds for fiscal year 23. So I would step down from the chair and amend this motion to postpone indefinitely. Is there a second?
So I would
There
like,
is.
I'm sorry, we're in
A second.
discussion, so I would like to respond in discussion because that's what deliberation is.
There has been a motion and a second in regards to an amendment.
No,
Is there-
we were on discussion, so I'm going to discuss it. And so that is not what the actual motion is. It isn't to just look at 2023, and it isn't just to do an audit. There is a difference between a forensics audit and an audit. And so the member of the public requested a forensic audit. That's what I put on the table. And the reason, one of the issues that's happening with this particular board, and I'd actually like to ask you publicly, you wrote a letter on December 4th before a decision was made by this board, and you have been asked multiple times. You wrote a letter to an external auditor. Did you receive legal input? And if so, by whom? Because it wasn't approved by our legal team. and it has to do with auditing Bonner County. And so will you answer that question? I've sent it an email, and I know that you've been asked of that by the prosecutor's office. Did you receive legal input on your letter? Are you looking for a rule to say you don't have to answer? I just want to know if
Actually,
you sent
Commissioner
a
Williams,
letter.
I'm going to give you a response, but I get to choose the words that are issued from my mouth. So, the audit of county funds, Idaho Code 31-809, to examine and audit the account of all money officers having the care, management, collection, and disbursement of monies belonging to the county or appropriated by law or otherwise for its use and benefit. And what's interesting about this is that is under the powers and duties of the Board of Commissioners. I know that there has been a number of other elected officials that have overreached, and I use that term specifically in regards to some of their perspectives, and I disagree. Statute is clear. The audit is under the control of the Board of County Commissioners. There is a motion on the floor that has been seconded. Is there any further discussion
There
on
actually is.
the motion to postpone indefinitely?
No, I'm going to actually take you back to Title 74, subsection 2, deliberation. So it means the receipt or exchange of information or opinion relating to a decision, but shall not include informal or impromptu discussions of general nature that do not specifically relate to the matter. I specifically asked you a question about the Hayden Ross letter. Did you receive legal input before you wrote this to Hayden Ross? Because I did not hear the answer to that question in your response.
That has been the second
No,
part of discussion from
that's not
Commissioner
gonna
Williams.
work because
Is there any
deliberation-
other deliberation
So
on the motion and second?
It isn't going to,
to-
that's not going to work because when you want to use Robert's Rules of Order, it allows for deliberation. You just saying Asia spoke twice is not deliberation, and I just told you the rule. It's meaningful discussion, and actually your use of Robert Rules of Order requires it to actually be exhaustive. You intentionally are ignoring the question that is very objective and actually very important for the county, because this statement says a lot of legal stuff, and not a prosecutor in our office wrote this statement. I'm asking you because we need an audit, and I'll point to all of the people within Bonner County that want to know what happened in the years prior. You don't get that with looking at 2023. The request is a forensics audit. So we're not talking about just looking at what happened in this past year. We're talking about, we have sent a report out to the public that says Bonner County has funds that have gone missing. What has Bonner County elected officials done to protect the Bonner County residents from losing money? You don't do that by glossing it over, and you don't do it by ignoring my question about who wrote this letter, because our prosecutor's office represents our county. I don't know who helped with this, but it doesn't look like a non-legal letter. And I would like you to respectfully answer the question, did you receive legal input? And then actually deliberate on the request of the member of the community that's asking for a forensics audit. And it's not just one person. You have a group of people that regularly attend the fair. They want to know what happened. You have people that disagree with what happened. Why is there people saying that they want an audit, but not really? That's a problem. So I want you to deliberate. It requires you to deliberate, and we're not going to bypass this item by you saying Asia spoke twice. You have answered nothing, and deliberation is required by both Robert's Rules of Order and Idaho statute.
Roll call vote.
We're not going to move past me because even
Madam
your
Clerk,
code of conduct
Madam Clerk,
requires
call the
you.
vote.
I'm going to make this meeting not reasonable if you continue, because I'm not, we're going to deliberate. So you deliberate or you recess, and the community has a workshop on why 2 board members don't want a forensics audit of money that we can say is missing between $40,000 and $200 because of an objective opinion. So you choose which way you want to go. Well, I came prepared knowing of the proclivity of your board to silence my voice in this meeting. And we're not doing that today. So we're not voting on anything. We're going to talk deliberation. Why don't you want the forensics audit? The community is asking of that.
Community wants to know what you're hiding.
Mr. Bowman, this is not the time. And for the audience, thank you for that outburst.
We're deliberating.
If
We're
there is
deliberating the issue.
if there are further outbursts, I will ask for people to be removed. I will start with the Sergeant of Arms, and then I will go to our Bonner County Sheriff's Lieutenant, who is in the room to assist in maintaining order.
He's not here to
And
assist
then-
you.
That's fine.
That's not
And then
what
I
he's
will
here
look
for.
at Prosecutor Lewis Marshall that is
you
in this
don't
room
listen
for
to.
a legal.
Which legal opinion? Why don't you ask the attorney that wrote your letter? I want to, 1 second. Because apparently we're doing
Yes.
projections. So what's going to happen is we're going to deliberate on this issue. We're not going to silence and I'm not going to yell. I asked you a question. Hayden and Ross letter, who drafted it?
Commissioner Williams, that is.
Take a recess.
I'm sorry, that's
Take a recess
irrelevant
if
to
you
the
want to.
subject matter that was brought up. in the
I brought
agenda.
up a
Continue with the
forensics
vote.
audit. We're not continuing an audit.
This is for the
We're
amendment to
not
postpone
continuing an audit. We're
indefinitely.
going, you did not deliberate
Yes.
the issue,
The
so you
motion
cannot
carries.
vote.
Your next agendized item, Commissioner Williams.
So anybody have questions on why we're not doing a forensics audit? And I would like to ask the people in the room who go to the fair regularly
It is
and address the
9:26 and this
board,
meeting is recessed until 11 a.m.
and this board will not actually look at where the money went.
Madam Clerk, are you ready? Good morning. It is 11 a.m. and we are returning out of a recess. And we are about to enter into another recess before entering into executive session that is scheduled for the BOCC. And we will wait upon technology as soon as we get that. So it's 11 a.m. It is now 11 a.m. and we are entering into a 5-minute recess.
I actually don't understand what just happened because you have to start with the next agenda item, which is
Burn it all up. That's what
All right, it's
about rain.
11:41 and we are
You don't shovel it.
returning out of a recess to our regularly scheduled business meeting, and we are returning to item 7 of Commissioner Williams' items.
all righty. Zoom and YouTube, when we go on breaks, especially when we're going to have legal online, it's reasonable to keep those streaming. I understand if there wants to be like a line that says it's because it's a recess, it's no longer part of the official meeting if it's adjourned. But people come online to participate in what's happening in the building. And whether it's a weather issue or whether it's just they want to be on Zoom, I don't think we should stop the stream because at least it allows us to participate. Even though we stopped having the meeting, we had a meaningful discussion with the community with a lot of input from people that you guys regularly don't get to actually ask questions of. Legal actually answered specific questions brought forward, and we're not allowing all members of the community the opportunity to be participants of it or to listen to that. And I think it will actually create a significant hardship for legal because we are asking their presence for the meetings, which is inclusive of that gap of time, because that gap of times, things do happen, comments are made, and we need to be able to address those because that's all the function of Bonner County that's taking place. And so my motion is that technology maintain the meeting for Zoom and YouTube during a recess and breaks without any muting so that the people online can participate in discussion as well as to ensure that council is available for everything that's happening at that meeting.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion dies. Next agendized item.
All right, so all records released by legal to members of the public are to be archived on county's website. This also came from a member of the public. Legal gave their opinion that once they release an item to a member of the public, there isn't a reason that it could not be archived online. It would actually allow for a reduction in work by staff because once records are released, they wouldn't have to do it again because you'd be able to search those records online. So the prior, when I brought forward, it was stated that I didn't give a memorandum with my request and that the legal opinion wasn't valid. Lewis Marshall gave an opinion that said he responded to my request. He doesn't have to do it on a letterhead from the prosecutor's office. He sent an email that explained it. He didn't have an issue. He also agreed that if it was necessary, we could even do something like where when we're sending those requests and he's responding, that we actually get a little box that says okay to archive on the county's website to have a kind of fail-safe. So there isn't a reason, there isn't a document that you would receive in a public records release that we couldn't share with the next person that wanted that same document, because legal would have already done the review. We're getting a lot of duplicate requests because people are looking for the same. I'm sure that there's a number of you that asked for, I would like something related to cameras in here. Well, if one of you asked for it and someone did the review and the work to collate all that information together, why do we look at it multiple times when we could just put it online and you could say, I got the answer that I needed? So this is intended to reduce workload, to make it easy on the public, and to allow for, even as members of the public, there are things that you might consider asking for that would already be available to you that would reduce our resources. So my motion is, with the recommendation of legal as stated, to archive documents that have been released by legal and approved to be archived on the county website moving forward.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion dies. The next agendized item on the Board of County Commissioners is from myself, so I will step down from the chair. Bonner County Code 1-200. This chapter is enacted for the purpose of establishing a regular meeting schedule for the Bonner County Board of Commissioners in order that the board activities can be carried out with greater public participation and awareness. Regular meeting. The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Commissioner reports are not a requirement of either Idaho statute or Bonner County Code. The regular business meeting is to conduct the business of Bonner County and should be just that. Further, there is a popular misconception that there is a particular zone for representation. All three of the Board of County Commissioners represent all 52,000 of Bonner County's residents. It is only for the purpose of the election that zone or district matters. So therefore, I will remain stepped down from the chair and move to remove commissioner reports from the regular business meeting effective immediately. Is there a second?
There is.
There is a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
I do have discussion on this. So I agree with some of what you said. Your commissioner report should actually be about the business of the commissioner, and that's only what I communicate. I communicate everything from questions that I get asked to what's going on in the county, actively what I am doing. I do agree that some of the commissioner reports that have come forward from other districts has not contained anything other than the weather. I don't think that's what our meeting is for. It should be me telling you how I'm earning my pay as your county commissioner. It's inaccurate to say that the district doesn't matter. If each and every one of the commissioners from our districts actually worked our districts, listened and represented our districts, when you come to Sandpoint, which is the county seat, every district would feel represented. There's a reason you have to live in your district. It isn't just because you ran for office, it's because I'm supposed to be insulated within my community so that when I come to Sandpoint, I'm bringing forward the issues of the people in that district to the county seat. So that is a misconception. And that is actually why I always say District 2 Commissioner Report, because when I go back to my district, I need to be asking, what's your issue? We have an issue with roads. Okay, got to bring that issue to the county seat because Blanchard doesn't like what the roads look like. That's me representing my district. That doesn't mean I don't represent, because Asia also gives you a district report of what I do in Clark Fork, of what I do around the entire county. The issue about the district report is not because I'm not talking about the business of Bonner County. It's because the two of you are not talking about the business of Bonner County. And that is what the problem is. You don't have to be required to tell. For me, the idea that you say there is no requirement to do it doesn't work. We shouldn't need rules and bigger government to tell us how to represent the people. What you don't like is that the way in which I represent the people is I go to the people where they are and I bring it to this seat. And what you're seeing is an increase of people that are listening, hearing, following, and being involved. And they're changing their expectations of what this board communicates. I'll remind the people of Bonner County that a few weeks ago, Commissioner Bradshaw made the comment that I don't even know why we do commissioner reports. This is new. And in an attempt to address that issue, I made the comment that, well, we could just remove yours if you wanted to, thinking that that was what the issue was. The response from Commissioner Omodt was, nope, we're going to say it how we want to say it, or use whatever language you use. Fine, just trying to make it easy. I've got stuff to report on. I'm not reporting on Bonner County. And so now we want to remove not commissioner report, we want to remove me from telling you what you are owed as a community. There's something wrong with this pattern of behavior by this board, because if you don't want to do a commissioner report as a commissioner, just don't do one. But the idea that you want to take my commissioner report away, that's not going to work. And it's going to cause more problems for the community, because just like every single thing that this board votes the majority to take away, what do? I reinvent it, rewrap it, and it becomes amazing. You took public comment away. Look how many commissioner chats we have. Look how many agencies that participate. Look how much more community involvement you have. The idea of it's not business is ridiculous. It is all business. You're members of the community, regardless of who you supported. There are people that wanted to hear about different court cases. Half of what I actually put on this agenda that you guys just refuse to discuss and deliberate, even though Robert's rule says we should be doing that, was from people that support the two of you. You shut everything down that they wanted you to hear as well. Why? Because I'm the one who brought the business of Bonner County to this meeting with an expectation that as a community, we demand from our elected officials that we tell you what we're doing. And that's really what you're trying to prevent. You're trying to prevent, because in some ways you guys control the narrative in some media outlets of what can be presented in Bonner County. But in this meeting, you don't control that. So you take away district report, I'll call it something else, every single meeting. So it's pointless. Just take yours off. You're not reporting anything anyhow. You name drop people that you may or may not have had an event with. You talk about the weather, you tell us that things are bad, that's fine. But it isn't a report of business. So you can choose the opposite and say, holy crap, it is about the business. I better start reporting about the business. But if you make a decision to vote 2-1 to take away District 2 report with an assumption that it's going to be immediately, that doesn't actually give you the right to change the agenda, just so you know. This is an agendized item that has District 2 report, and I'm still going to give a District 2 report. And then next week, I'm going to call it something else. And we're going to play a game every Tuesday until you realize that both you and whatever media writes, Asia's not quitting and not going anywhere. It's going to be a long 3 years. So how about you accept the advice that you started the year of and say it's going to be different? Let me have my little 5 minutes, and we don't have to talk very long about things unnecessarily just because you want to avoid a report that I am still going to give. Just going to call it something else.
Commissioner,
I've got an ideal. How about we start the new year off and all three commissioners actually do commissioner jobs where they actually do the business of the county and not be community organizers. If you want to be a community organizer, then resign and go be a community organizer. Hillary Clinton was a good one.
Mr. Bradshaw, I'm going to interrupt because
It's a business meeting. It's to do the business. Thank you,
Mr. Bradshaw. I will bring it back. The motion on the floor that is seconded is to remove commissioner reports. I would like us to keep it to removing commissioner reports. Is there any further discussion? And I would remind, excuse me.
There's a person who has an email and you actually,
And may I finish my comment, Commissioner?
you don't have to pretend to be wounded. You can just speak.
Oh, no, I'm just
I
present.
guess that was a.
So I will remind that the standing rules limit debate unless there is a request from a board member and a ruling where any ruling of the chair can be appealed and overturned with a majority vote. So now all three of us have had a discussion. Is there any further discussion?
Well, I'm going to give a clarification because you cannot enact rules that change an ordinance. And we go back to the same legal opinion that we're ignoring. The ordinance doesn't say that you can tell me I can speak twice. Robert's rules doesn't say. And in all things, I am the minority voice on the board, and so deliberation is required. So you can't keep creating rules of let's silence Asia because you're not actually addressing. So I'm not someone's Hillary Clinton community organizer. I am a representative of Bonner County, and you see that and you feel that in Bonner County, and that is what angers you. It is visible and it is body language. What you're doing doesn't make any sense and it isn't going to change. And you do have an obligation to deliberate. So the whole exercise of what happened earlier was you guys are refusing to follow half of the rules I read about deliberation on purpose. Talk about the issue that I brought forward. I'm speaking about the business, every single commissioner report. Your argument is that it's not about the business, but it is. I agree, yours isn't about business. Mine is all about the business. From
Commissioner Williams, I will remind you, and I am interrupting as the chair. We are not engaging, just as I interrupted Commissioner Bradshaw.
Well, I didn't
Your
throw
ad
barbs
hom-
at people.
Actually,
Yeah, I didn't.
your ad hominem attacks about our commissioner reports are nothing but a continuous barb. So the motion on the floor, and I will remind you, and you will have 2 minutes remaining before I will see if the other
So
two
where's the time, and
commissioners.
what rule says time on a commissioner deliberation?
Actually, it's in the standing rules, which are completely fine. And
What standing rule tells you that you can alter based
the
on your
chairman.
That's actually not how it
Chairman
works.
runs the meeting.
So
end of
running the
story,
meeting
no ifs,
doesn't
ands,
mean
or buts.
creating your own rules.
I would step down from the chair and call for the question. Is there a second?
So this is a
There is a
continued
motion
failure to
and a
deliberate
second.
by the board.
To call the question immediately. Roll call vote.
No,
Wait.
Yes.
I have a letter that needs to get read into the record.
I was trying to read it. Sorry, Brandon.
Yes.
The motion carries. The next item on the agenda, by the way, I will pause for a moment. Mr. Kramer, your letter is going to be read into the record during public comment.
It's not a public comment. It's specifically to that agenda item.
Please mute, Mr. Kramer.
Actually, I'm going to throw a red flag on this, and I'd say file a complaint with
We're to
Lewis
the
Marshall,
next-
because what actually was stated in this meeting was that if people had issues they wanted addressed by individual items, that they could submit that ahead of time and have those things addressed. So it's not appropriate for you to silence Mr. Kramer because you don't like the letter that he sent in. In fact, he should be able to read it because that's what you said, so long as it was in advance, and that's what he did on an individual item. So it's not his public comment. So you would be violating the impromptu rule that you gave at whatever meeting that was about that. So well, there you go. December the whatever. Mr. Kramer should be reading his comment on that item.
You are not the chair. We are going to return to regular order.
You're just going to give
of
us more
this.
violations of this meeting for the same
You
meeting.
can file them as with your other reports to the Attorney General. The next item on our
So
Bonner
does that
County,
count as a barb or not?
no, that would be known as a statement of fact. So our
Has
next,
Asia ever filed a complaint to the Attorney General? No, not once.
our next item on the agenda, we are returning to our regular order. Our next item on the agenda, Mr. Kramer, that's the second time you have been warned. If I hear another comment that is disparaging, where you reference fecal material in regards to this board, you will be asked to leave. Thank you. I just said you would be asked to leave. So our next item on the agenda is Bailey has submitted an invoice for $3,712 for services conducted for the Bonner County Fairgrounds and Rodeo on 10/31/2023. Idaho Code 22-10 204 states it shall have, and this is the Idaho code for the fairgrounds, it shall have the power to employ labor, award prizes, make exhibition contracts, fix and charge admission and entrance fees, let contracts for concessions or services to be conducted at the fair or under the direction of the county fair board. But if any concession or service is to extend for a period of less than 12 days in a calendar year, the concession or service may be awarded without bid and do all other things necessary for holding any county fairs. This invoice was inappropriately submitted by the Bonner County Fairgrounds and Rodeo to Bonner County to be paid when it is very clear on the invoice which is attached that it was the services were engaged by the Bonner County Fairgrounds and Rodeo. And I will step down from the chair and move to remit the Eide Bailey invoice to the Bonner County Fairgrounds and Rodeo for payment. Is there a second?
There is.
There is a second. Is there discussion on this?
Sure,
Item.
there's discussion. So for those of you that don't know, what Eide Bailey was doing was they were reviewing, auditing stuff related to money about the fair. We have, the reason I keep asking the question about who's given legal advice is because the letter is in contradiction with what legal has advised this board on as the relationship to the fair. This is something that should be reviewed and responded to by legal. This is in line with a commissioner's statement about the relationship, but not in line with what our legal has said. If you look at what we talked about during our break time and with our auditor understanding we got to move forward on stuff and then we got to look back. This is not reasonable to say Eide Bailey doesn't get paid for reviewing this. So I would not going to support this and probably going to end up bringing this one back. There's a problem with this board and its position against what our legal opinion is on the fair. So,
Is there any further discussion?
I have none.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
nope.
Yes,
Yes.
the motion carries. My third item for today is Idaho Code 31. Oh, that's the wrong, but it's the advisor of, it's 31-8-13, which is the counties and county law, powers and duties of the Board of Commissioners. The control of suits, to direct and control the prosecution and defense of all suits to which the county is a party in interest, and employ counsel to conduct the same with or without the prosecuting attorney as they may direct. The BOCC is statutorily obligated by Idaho Code 31-813 to direct and control all suits to which the county is a party in interest. However, the prosecuting attorney is the legal advisor to the Board of County Commissioners according to Idaho Code 31-2607. The BOCC is also responsible for the payment of claims against the county as found in Idaho Code 31-810. And therefore, it makes sense to this commissioner, and if we are expected to pay any bill for civil litigation, which the Board of County Commissioners is in charge of, that we get to see all of the bills. So all of those bills should come through our office. The Civil Litigation Fund it's a challenge. There is all sorts of threats that we face from all sorts of different people across Bonner County in regards to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And that's just kind of the nature of the world that we live in. So I will step down from the chair and move all claims and bills from account 03471 lines 7100 through 7200 be submitted to the Board of County Commissioners for bill review prior to the disbursement of funds, and to direct the risk manager to compile a comprehensive report for all fiscal year 23 claims and expenses from these lines to be presented to the Board of County Commissioners no later than February 6, 2023. Is there a second?
I second that.
There is a motion and a second on the floor. Is there discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners?
Before I have a discussion, did legal approve your memo?
Is there any further discussion amongst the Board of County Commissioners?
That's a necessary component to moving forward when you want to take control and receive that information. So I'm asking you, did they review and approve it?
And I'm
which is
asking
a
if there's,
usual and so deliberation, again, it's part of the statute. So you need to answer on what I'm asking you. And so you're choosing not to do that. So do you realize that one of the consequences of this meeting is that it be deemed you didn't deliberate and she asked a question, therefore everything we did is invalid. This was a very long day and we don't want to redo it. It's a very simple question. Did legal review and approve what you're trying to do here? It will be invalidated. We're throwing out issues with this meeting all day today.
is there any further discussion on this agendized item?
That is the discussion that hasn't happened, so we can't have further until we have the first. So please respond to the question that I've asked you. Has legal reviewed and approved what you're trying to do here? It is reasonable, appropriate for you to answer the
State statute
question.
approves it.
And it deliberates. Deliberation is what is
If they want to be paid.
deliberation is required. It's not just deliberate with Commissioner Bradshaw, it's the board. And so my question is valid. So please answer.
There has been the
There has not been,
There has
that is
been
not
the
deliberation. No, it's not.
There has been the appropriate-
No, there has not.
Madam Clerk,
It is
please proceed.
not-
Roll call
It is
vote.
not a deliberation to just let Asia speak twice and move on. I told you the statute for deliberation. It requires that you respond to what I'm asking. And you are not running the meeting correctly. You need to respond. Did legal review what you're trying to do with their bills?
legal doesn't have bills. All bills, all payments of claims,
Just
Commissioner.
answer the yes or no. We don't have
Please
to go
continue
into
with the
you.
vote.
I'm not voting and you don't get to bypass my vote. I'm asking a question
That's
to
an abstention.
deliberate on the issue. And, excuse me,
Yes.
whoa, you don't get to,
You just said you're not
You just
voting.
said I'm not voting.
you do not,
You just verbally
no, I
said
said
you're not
you do
voting.
not get to bypass my vote and you
Yes.
called it an
motion
abstention and
carries.
it's not.
You s-
I said you do not get to bypass my vote
It
and
is
you said it is
12:05.
called an abstention.
We have,
clearly stated you
we are
weren't
about
voting.
to go
No, I did
into
not.
the
You're-
public comment
All
section.
this is going to be done. You actually don't get to remove an agendized item because you said effective immediately. It's for the next meeting. My item of District 2 report is on the agenda for today.
are
Next
moving-
week, you're
It
bypassing
is 12:05
District 2
and we are
report.
going into a 2-hour recess. And this meeting will resume at
What?
2:05.
2 hours?
You can tell time. Good job, Mr. Rose. Madam Clerk, are we ready? Good afternoon. It is 2:05 and we are returning from a recess. And we are going to begin our public comment session, and we are going to start today with our online members. And the first person I'm going to call upon is Amy Lunsford. Go ahead, Ms. Lunsford. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Amy Lunsford for the record. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
ma'am.
can.
Okay. Does Bonner County have a purchasing agent that gets quotes on commonly used supplies? Because every corporate type job I have been employed at has had office supply contracts and other, used type of contracts. And we, the employees, were issued what was afforded to us, and anything above and beyond we had to pay for ourselves. And I'm asking this question is because it seems like some of our groups have way too big of a yearly budget. And for example, the prosecutor's office, they've been using a third party to transcribe meetings. And there's a lot of them. So maybe if we purchased our own transcription software, that would be cheaper for the taxpayers in the end. One transcription was $186, and it was for a rush on a special 1 hour BOCC meeting about the RV park in April. They have new desks for $794. They got government auditing standard literature for $221. The memo said that they needed it to give advice to the fair board and the sheriff. They have Prime memberships for $179. Does every elected get their own Prime account for $179? Or would it be best if we had just one account for the whole county and one person manage that? At one point, the prosecutor office apparently remodeled an upstairs kitchen and spent $140 on a new kitchen island, $191 on a storage cabinet. They have many Kindle downloads in the hundreds of dollars. At one point, they bought AirPods for $199, more AirPods for $219, an armoire for $549, gaming keyboards for $179. At what point is this okay to continually buy these excessive items for government work? There was a drone for $900. The memo said that it was for investigations. VR goggles for $779. That didn't have any memo. Apparently that just went through. And my other question is, if the prosecutor has a drone and VR goggles for investigations, why wasn't that loaned to the Sandpoint Police Department for Darcy Smith's initial investigation of her crime scene? Instead of having an officer walking around with a cell phone above his head.
Ms. Lunsford, your time has expired. The first part of your question, though, I couldn't hear because of, is there a way to turn the volume down? It's like crazy loud. So technology, I don't know. I'm sorry. It was actually so loud. I didn't catch the very first part of your question about your query. If you would email the board, that would be appreciated. But for the general public, I will say we are waiting on a couple of executive sessions to get to with departments. So Ms. Lunsford, thank you for your comments. Please email any additional questions that you may have. Mr. Kramer, go ahead.
Good afternoon, I guess now, not morning anymore. Brandon Kramer for the record. I have a similar question as to Ms. Lunsford as it relates to the Amazon accounts. Who has those accounts, who has access to them, and how are they in fact audited? It seems reasonable that one could purchase something with an Amazon account, submit it to the county, and then return that item for Amazon credit as they see fit. And so that's an interesting debacle that the county may find themselves in, rather than having a purchaser like Ms. Lunsford had asked. My second question is around, this is, I think, specifically to Commissioner Omodt, the ability to ask questions on specific agendized items was raised by you last week, I believe it was. And I'd like to understand the process for which the public may have their thoughts or opinions heard during these meetings, given the fact that public comment has been removed entirely.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Kramer. Christine Noella, excuse me.
Hi there. Can
Hold on
everybody
one
hear
moment.
me?
Yeah, one moment, Miss Noel. Thank you. I was just watching for the tech to reset your timer. Please begin.
Okay, so my name is Christine Logue for the record. And I was there earlier, but had to leave. I did have to get back to work today. I had a couple things of question today, and I did get one of them answered as per the commissioner's comments. I wondered if you guys had a chance to review the agenda items prior, like per se, if you, Mr. Omodt, had brought something, agendized an item, and put it on there, if the other two commissioners were able to review that and see prior to the meeting, so that way, if to make a decision so quickly, that you had already had a chance to look over the agendized item. And then that being said, it's really nice to hear why or why not a decision is made on those different items. What causes you to say yes or to say no. Also, I'm having a concern again with the Daily Bee. We all know that that is the paper of choice for public notices, and I had to completely get rid of my subscription just because it doesn't even come to our area. You can pay triple the amount if you want to have it online, which I don't, because even my internet out in my area kind of sucks. So it'd be waste of my money. But it's still being used as the source to put in the public notices when it's not readily available to anyone else, or not everybody, excuse me, is what I meant to say. It's not in our area, north of Spirit Lake, Old Town, Priest River. The only place that gets it is the east side of our county. Is there something else we can do about that? And then, Mr. Omodt, you represent us all, or you said that you represent us all as a county, and that I believe is true. And I'm just wondering that when an item is brought to your attention, such as many of us are bringing up, to have you guys consider those to be put on the agenda, or talk about, or bring it to them. What is the protocol for that? Do you have to do something specific to get, like, per se, you or Mr. Bradshaw? Can anyone or any one of you three commissioners put those items on the list? And if so, how come only Asia seems to be putting them on? And then the public comment being at the end, it seems that it ends or adds more. Instead of, me wanting to come there, say what I have to say, and then go about our business, it seems that I'm listening through all these meetings and I'm coming up with all these other notes and all these other questions. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention and wondered if it could be returned to the beginning.
Christine, your time has expired. Thank you for your comments.
HR returned back to the
Thank you for your comments. We are moving on to the next speaker. You're welcome. Christina Nicholas Anderson.
Christina Nicholas Anderson for the record. Thank you for hearing my comments today. There's been much speculation and controversy over the ICCO, its purpose, membership, existence, and whether it exists and why, and its impact on both the BOCC and the taxpayers. Rather than allowing for further speculation and rumors, Ms. Lunsford and I have discussed hosting a formal meeting in which we would extend an invitation to all current and former members of the ICCO to attend. Members could choose to attend or not at their own choosing. Those in attendance would be invited to give a 3 to 5 minute presentation on their role in the ICCO, either past or present. Members of the public would have the opportunity to submit questions on index cards, which would be read to the ICCO members by the meeting facilitator, with a limit on the length of the responses. No audience participation would be allowed to allow for a structured and productive meeting. The meeting would have a hard start and stop time to allow officials to return to their respective jobs. It is the feeling this would be a good use of taxpayer resources, considering these officials have already invested significant amounts of time in these meetings and have now been subject to much ridicule. We feel this would serve to educate the public once and for all We believe we've identified an unbiased approach to hosting the meeting and find the county building would be the most appropriate and neutral place to hold said meeting. If you find the meeting would be better hosted by a county employee to proxy, we'll happily step aside to allow that to take place. We were simply offering to do some of the legwork. We understand that you don't rent or allow community members to use the county buildings. So we're asking if the BOCC would either host the meeting or allow us to proxy it and do some of the legwork in effort to bring this whole ICCO thing to light once and for all and allow its members to either clear their name or educate us once and for all on what they do or what they don't do. We're happy to help in any way necessary to facilitate this effort. Respectfully and solution-focused, Christina L. Nicholas Anderson. We welcome your feedback and thank you for considering this.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Hutchings, go ahead.
This is Spencer Hutchings for the record. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm so glad. You sound like you're so happy to hear from me, Luke. I'm glad to make your Tuesday. I was curious. I may have mentioned this in the past, and if I did, I don't think anything happened. Where's Darcy's laptop? And what's on her laptop? Why is there this big mystery over finances when we have this gal's laptop, which is county owned, and nobody seems to have looked at it? Or did somebody look at it and they don't want to tell us what's on it? I don't know. But there's a laptop out there, and I'm kind of curious why nobody's being told what's on it.
Take that up with the prosecutor.
Well, the prosecutor is dropping in on this meeting, isn't he? Or did he die of boredom? I don't know. Anyway,
Allow the public to continue with his comments.
So if the prosecutor and from what my understanding was that I think Clerk Rosedale had the laptop for like a year and never looked at it. I mean, or the clerk's office had it. So if they've had it, how come nobody's looked at it? I guess, maybe Lewis needs to go get it or something. I'm not sure. And I'd like you to know your attempts to silence the public and to silence Asia and to put her in a little box and make sure she can't do anything are very, very obvious. And I'm sure at this point, they're very obvious and you're doing it anyways, which means you don't care. So you don't care that your obvious attempts to silence the public and silence Asia are being seen by everybody. Man, there's got to be some serious motivation for you to do that because you are really angering a lot of people. They're seeing you pick on this lady who's trying to do her job while the two of you are doing your best to do nothing or to do things that are benefiting you in some way. I don't know what you're doing.
Well, Mr. Hutchings, that's where I'm going to stop you. You have a history of making comments, and as I said at the beginning, that is not derogatory. I will not tolerate that. Your comments are done. Thank you, Mr. Hutchings. No, you are done, Mr. Hutchings. I appreciate that, but you will not be making comments. In your last go round, it was about the ability of someone on this board to purchase their own private property. Mr. Hutchings is done speaking today. Are there any other members online that would like to participate? Seeing none, we will begin with our printed list of participants, and we will begin with Miss Ann Wilder Chamberlain.
She didn't have.
Okay, does she have a comment? I will read it into the record. I'll take the other one from Mr. Kramer as well. All right, and I'm going to start with Mr. Kramer's. Commissioners, this is from Brandon Kramer, who has already spoken. I'm writing to ask that you not approve this memorandum and instead keep the commissioner reports as part of the BOCC weekly business meeting agenda. As stated in the memo, the purpose of the BOCC weekly business meeting is 1-200 purpose. This chapter is enacted for the purpose of establishing a regular meeting schedule for the Bonner County Board of Commissioners in order that the board activities can be carried out with greater public participation and awareness. Ordinance 192 enacted April 9th, 1990. Unfortunately, the suggestion to remove or the act of actually removing the commissioner reports from the BOCC weekly business meeting is contrary to the key element of the weekly business meeting. It is very clear the reason why the BOCC weekly business meetings exist is to, in order that board activities can be carried out with greater public participation and awareness, I have added emphasis so it is abundantly clear why the BOCC weekly business meeting is used. The commissioner reports, when used appropriately, do in fact provide us, the public, a greater awareness of what is happening with the operations of Bonner County and provide us with the greatest opportunity to participate via asking questions over any other mechanism. Without the commissioner reports, the public would not be aware of the commissioner chats, progress, and updates on the Idaho Association of Counties and other board activities. It is true there is no law, ordinance, or regulation which specifically requires a commissioner's report. However, I call upon each of you to operate to a higher level than what is minimally required. As with all things in life, nobody desires for the absolutely minimum standards to be met. As a school teacher, surely Commissioner Omodt wanted more for his students than D grades, although Ds get degrees. As a pastor, Commissioner Bradshaw surely wants his flock to be rich in the fruit of the Spirit and not stop at only placing their faith in Jesus. As a holder of an MBA, surely Commissioner Williams doesn't want a business to break even each year, but rather have exceptional profits. All that to say, removing commissioner reports will beholden you to operating that much closer to the absolute minimum in your capacity as a county commissioner. I am confident that in your other endeavors you strive for excellence, and I urge you to do the same here. Best regards, Brandon Kramer. P.S. There is no law, ordinance, or regulation which prohibits the commissioner reports. Mr. Kramer, I will tell you, because you asked for this to be read into the record, your phone number will be found on that document. The next is from Miss Ann Chamberlain. My name is Ann Wilder Chamberlain, and I live north of Priest River at 349 Primrose Lane. I have spoken to all of you about the necessity of creating a telecommunications ordinance to protect Bonner County residents from the proliferation of microwave radiation flooding our country. You can see on the map how many antennas are already in Sandpoint alone. The wireless industry is a formidable enemy if you have no protective language in place. Kootenai County is currently dealing with this problem as the wireless industry is determined to place unnecessary cell towers in residential neighborhoods all over the county, and residents are rising up to fight it. In the Potlatch Hill neighborhood, residents had several good documented reasons for the commissioners to deny the placement of a cell tower in their neighborhood, including a water issue and no significant gap in coverage. The county, following local land use planning rules, denied the facility, and AT&T is now trying to sue them because, as their attorney stated, there is insufficient language in their telecommunications code to prevent the placement of that tower. For this reason, I am asking the BOCC to update our comprehensive plan to include protections that we also currently do not have. In 2022, Andrew Campanelli, the top litigator on behalf of municipalities in the country, for only $8,000 wrote a model telecom ordinance for Dalton Gardens with full legal backing. Every municipality in the state can use it. Kootenai County has asked for it. Why not Bonner County? I have a presentation I would like to give you and your constituents regarding what you can legally put into an ordinance to protect you and Bonner County residents from wireless industry overreach. I am asking that this be put on the agenda for next week and that the BOCC subsequently has a public workshop to discuss the details. Thank you. 130 towers and 187 antennas in Sandpoint alone. And there is a copy for each of the commissioners, and there will be one that will be entered into the record.
So I need to add something to Ann. I scheduled her workshop. She has her workshop scheduled on the 16th, which is next Tuesday at 1 p.m. after the business meeting, to give her PowerPoint presentation for information.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now we will return to the public. Miss Diane Welly.
I've come to you in the past citing pieces of the armor of God.
Pardon me, Miss Diane, would you state, I apologize, but for the people that are coming
Diane
up.
Welly for the record.
Thank you.
With which we must arm ourselves against the evil that I believe is creeping into Bonner County. I made a critical error. We're not to come wearing a piece of the armor at a time. We're to wear the entire set of armor at all times. Commissioner Bradshaw, you were correct once when you suggested the enemy had a foothold in this building. However, it didn't begin or start in 2023. It didn't begin with any of you three. It was already here, and it was waiting to do what the enemy does best, cause division in secret. And you were more than happy to play his game, as was the smirking commissioner, who is more than happy to harass by proxy. What that commissioner doesn't know is that he is a patsy for real evil, who is playing him like a fiddle and will toss him aside like a toy eventually. The enemy has
Miss
turned
Welly.
this county into a laughingstock
Miss
across
Welly,
the county.
I am going to stop you
The enemy
now.
has prompted attacks on the
Cameron.
county clerk, on the sheriff, and
Miss
on the
Welly, I'm
prosecutor.
going to ask you to cease your
Hate
comments.
is the overriding theme in Bonner County,
It
and the
is
county is
2:26, and
losing.
we will take a
Luke, I want
5-minute
no more
recess.
apologies from you as I requested previously. No, sorry.
Miss Welly. Can I handle
Anymore.
this, Lieutenant?
The enemy divided. It's scaring me much better than you can me. And I don't look away.
It is 2:31 and we are returning back to our public comment section, and I will return by beginning with the purpose for the public comment segment of the Board of County Commissioners business meeting is to enable citizens with issue or concerns which they wish to bring to the board's attention and afford an opportunity for consideration on a future agenda for possible board action. The board will not engage in dialogue with the presenter during the session, but rather may choose to schedule the presenter's topic for board consideration at a future business meeting. Questions may be directed to an individual board member for the purpose of clarifying issues or to obtain additional information for the purpose of scheduling the matter for a future business meeting. However, no action will be taken on any issue or concern brought to the board's attention during the session. The chair will not entertain under any circumstances comments derogatory in nature toward any board member, staff member, elected official, or member of the public. And I will bring to the members that are here of the public, this has been a trying meeting. There will not be continued derogatory comments toward any board member, staff member, elected official, or member of the public. Another comment of that session, we will just immediately recess before going into the executive session because we have staff members that are here to serve the public. And this gotcha game that has been played is not going to continue. With that, our next speaker is Mr. Dan Welly. Yes, you are, sir. But you don't have to, do you have any comments to make?
No.
George, which I'm assuming is George Gehrig. Jennifer Kramer.
Jennifer Kramer for the record. I forget who asked it about the items that we bring forth, that any one of you three can add them to the agenda for discussion. And Luke, I saw you nodding your head that was correct. Help me understand, although I guess this isn't dialogue, but I fail to understand why when Asia puts items on that are public items, that you refuse to even second them for discussion, for deliberation, so that we can at least understand where you're coming from. And so my request is that you would be more respectful of the public and our desire for business to be done in the county, and discuss these items and actually deliberate, and don't just shut down things because they're Asia's topics. Thank you.
I'll clarify that they're not Asia's on this particular one. These were your, right, they're the request of the public, from Ms. Lunsford to Ms. Nichols Anderson to Mr. Kramer online. Public comment is that I hear you and I respond by putting it on the agenda. And it should be that we hear what you guys want to know about those topics.
Our next public speaker is Mr. Rick Kramer.
Rick Kramer for the record. I would like on the agenda next week that you, Mr. Omodt, explain to us, the county, why we can't we can't have public comment. Why you remove that, and the commissioners' reports. The commissioners' reports are important to us. And you didn't explain why you want to remove it. You just removed it. You just instantaneously said, we're removing this immediately. And I'd like for you next week to explain to us your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. The next speaker is Mr. Dan Rose.
Good afternoon. Dan Rose for the record. Public comment has existed since ordinance creation in 1990, Ordinance 192. The board's decision to retool, reboot the weekly business meeting is not operational improvement, but rather destruction of efficient, long-standing procedure. I bring to you today a request that the Board of County Commissioners create an agenda item to instruct or be part of the Comprehensive Planning Committee ability to reopen the utilities portion of the comprehensive plan. Suggested amendment to address an obvious oversight as compared to other utilities within that same public services, facilities, and utilities section of the comp plan, which has also been provided to the planning director and the planning commission. Under code, any person can ask for this to be reopened. I am doing it personally, and I would ask that you do it as my representative. The Planning Commission's suggested update for public services, facilities, and utilities is dated November 7th, has yet to be scheduled as a recommendation update, which is the next step. And then the step after that would be a resolution by the board after you've discussed and decided it. The resolutions listed on the 23 and 24 list on the website do not identify a public services, facilities, or utilities currently adopted amendment by the BOCC, so it's still open for consideration. The Planning Commission's recommendation has not yet been drafted or publicly posted at the comp site either. The plan neither includes the identification of telecommunication providers, nor is a coverage map of the provider service areas presented like other sections in that section of public services, facilities, and utilities. It is well known that the telecommunications providers such as AT&T, Verizon, and SpaceX have service areas and facilities, those cell towers are facilities, defined by structures under the Bonner County Ordinance 11-219 and Bonner County Ordinance 12-819, both being the definition of structure. Additionally, Bonner County Ordinance 1208 communication towers is defined, and 12-821 urban services is defined, and urban services includes telephone services. Public service facilities and utilities, Chapter 3, Section 3.4 needs to be added to address telecommunications service providers, facilities, structures, and geographic coverage overlays, as at least AT&T and Verizon receive tax or service fees from individual phone bills to be used in infrastructure services, including 911 calls.
Mr. Rose, your time is up. Would you email that to us, please?
I will. And if I just
And
close without, actually, I think you have one
Well,
there.
if you'll email it, I'll get it to Chair Songstad and our planning director, and I will follow up with you.
Okay, and I have done that personally to them in the office today.
Okay.
Without an added section, public services, facilities, utilities, Chapter 3, Section 3.4, I suggest any resolution toward adoption of that public services, facilities, and utilities comp plan amendment pursuant to 67, 6502, and 6509 is incomplete and ill-advised. Thank you.
We'll take a look at it. Thank you. Mr. Bowman.
Dave Bowman for the record. Commissioner Omodt, at December 19th business meeting, you falsely accused Diane Welly of lying and
Mr.
reacted.
Bowman.
Nope, I'm going on. And
Mr. Bowman.
I'm stating
No,
that
you are
you
not,
reacted
Mr. Bowman.
unlawfully,
That's
removing
it.
the agendized
Leave out of
item
here.
for public comment.
That's
You
it,
can
Mr. Bowman.
sit there on
Nothing
your ass.
personal.
Mr. Bowman.
I'm gonna,
No.
please don't put your hands
That's
on me.
not,
if
no,
you
you don't need to put his
Okay.
hands on him.
Her comment was
But
that both former commissioners showed up.
We're
here.
going-
Nope.
we're done.
One
We are
was going
recessed.
into the commissioner area during the middle
Nope.
of executive session. She did not lie. I personally observed Dan McDonald come and go on.
Not too, Dan.
Yeah.
Hey, well,
So it's
you're good, we're ready?
All right, it is
Very good.
2:23 and we are coming back into our meeting, and I will step down from the chair and move to go into executive session under Idaho Code 74-206 1A hiring. Is there a second?
Yes.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the board?
There is discussion. These people came back after waiting nearly 3 hours, and I myself am a person on that list for public comment. We have been given legal opinion as to this behavior, and we've been advised not to do this. It is agendized to have public comment. Public comment and the right to free speech is not for the speech that you like. It is actually for what you don't like. I have sat here and listened to people make comments about me the whole meeting. I'm not yelling at anybody. I'm not screaming. That's part of being an elected official. You're not going to always be accepted by everybody. But this behavior that says, I'm going to call out
Commissioner,
individual
we
people,
are here
I'm
to
going
state
to
on the
actually,
agenda
as a
item.
board member, did we pay for the article that we put in the B about a community member? Did we pay for that?
No.
That's not reasonable. Why are we attacking our own community, but yet coming together saying we need to function appropriately? Our actions aren't in line as a board. And the reason I say board is whether I like the actions of the board that votes 2-1 on almost everything, we're still a board. So I don't accept this constant idea of pushing the public out because you don't like that they don't like the way that you look at them, the way you stare at them, the way you try to dress them down. And you do and have used rude, disrespectful language to members of the public while sitting here demanding that they treat you better than you deserve to be treated in these meetings. And that's what was exhibited today. And it needs to stop. You are elected. I have to accept crap that I don't like. I'm sitting in a meeting in a way I should not have to sit in because I'm an elected official. I have to suck it up. She should get to vindicate herself. Everyone should get their comment. The way you run this meeting is disgusting. For everybody that's online, if you asked me for something, I answered it. And if you didn't hear my answer, Christina, Amy, or even to Mr. Lady, you need to ask your elected official in Luke Omodt as to why you didn't get to hear the answer, because I did the work to bring forward your issue, to bring resolution to what you wanted to hear. I'm only one commissioner. But we cannot continue to function with this level of behavior by the board. I don't care what the community does. We are a board and we lead by example. And it is disgusting that you keep attacking someone that's here. I feel horrible that Lieutenant Riffle has to sit back there, but he's not back there because of me.
Yes, he is.
No, he's not. No, he's not. And I am tired of that rhetoric from you. And as you sit here and tell these people to be quiet as they defend themselves, the fact that you sit here and say because of me is disgusting.
He is here to prevent that man from carrying a.
I'd say everybody needs to write a letter to the editor and let the chairman
Now,
be put on notice of what he's doing.
apologies. I'm leaving. Perfect. Thank
As long as
you.
they tell everyone to write a letter to the editor.
Dan, you're right in at Dan Rose, before you leave. Jacob does not have your email or phone to correspond about your letter. But what is the email that you want me to give him?
We are going.
Okay, give it, can you give,
That's twice. Roll call vote.
give all of it? No. Can you give all of the information he requested,
Yes.
please?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are entering into executive session. Oh, wait, it was Idaho Code 7.